Hey, I hope you guys are having a great week. Um, Last week I was sick, that's why I didn't make a video, so I'm going to take it back again to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And obviously, I'm not going to read the whole verse, but I'm going to highlight some verses. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 through 8, he talks about, that, that there's a time for all these things, and there's an opportune time to do things, a time to mourn, a time to die, and it kind of goes back and forth with all these contrasts Solomon does. And in verse 9 he says, but in the end, does it make it really different what anyone does? And then in verse 11 is where I want to really camp out at, is he says this, true, as wise as Solomon is, he says this, he says, true, I know that God makes everything beautiful in his time, but he's left us in the dark, right? He left us in the dark so we can never know what God is up to, whether he's coming or going. And then in verse 12, this is the Message version. In verse 12 he says, I've decided that there's nothing better to do than go ahead and have a good time and get the most we can out of life. I think sometimes we consume ourselves with just knowing what's going to happen next, or we get consumed with knowing what's next or what's around the bend, or we get consumed over all these tasks and these things. And Solomon says, you know what, I'm not going to get caught up trying to figure out what God's going to do next. I'm not going to figure out why I'm going through this or going through that, or what's around the bend, but I'm going to live my life as it's the last. It's kind of like that. I'm just gonna live my life out. I'm just gonna enjoy this life. I'm not gonna get worried. I'm not gonna get caught up in all these things. But I think that's what we do in our life. We get caught up in try to figure out things, rather than just living your life for God and just saying, I'm not gonna worry about why this happened or why that happened or why this person doesn't like me or why I go through this or why this happened, and try to figure things out. Instead, Solomon says, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna try to figure out God and why God does these and why God does that, and I'm not gonna figure it out. I'm just gonna live my life to the fullest. Right? And in verse 12 he says this in the Message version. He says, I've decided that there's nothing better to do than go ahead and have a good time and get the most we can out of life. Yeah, I'm not going to get focused on all these things. I'm just going to get the most out of I can of my life. I'm just going to enjoy my life. I'm going to enjoy my time with my family. I'm going to enjoy what I have and not get caught up in what I don't have, and not get caught up in all this rigmarole, this task, and really sulk in, oh, this happened to me, or this happened to that, and or why am I going through this, or why is this happening, and really be stagnant, or really be stand still and do nothing because you're so fixated on why these things happen in your life. And really you should just be focused on God and just enjoy this life that he's given you. But I think that's what we need to do, is just get our eyes off of why this happened or why this or why that, and start fixing our eyes on God and Jesus and say, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy life. I'm just going to live my life today. I'm not going to look at the past. I'm not going to look at all these things and why these things happen, but I'm going to look at it as a way of saying, you know what, I'm just going to focus on God. I'm just going to look ahead. I'm just going to go completely enjoy this life that he has given me and blessed me with. So my encouraging word for you today is just, don't try to figure God out, because you can never figure God out. But try to live your life as it was your last. Live your life out as God wants you to live and desires you to live your life. Enjoy it. Walk with him daily. Focus on him, and not focus on the problem, but focus on Jesus. Not focus on the task and why things out and try to figure things out, but focus on God and him. Because everything will happen. All these seasons will occur, and you're not going to stop it. But what you can do is how you respond to these seasons, and focus on Jesus, and take it as a role, and just say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay. All these things happen, and all these things will be beautiful in its time. So as you focus on Jesus, He will get you through these things. He will get you through these tasks. He will get you through these seasons of life. And you will look back and say, it's okay. You look back and say, oh, that's why that happened, because God was trying to teach me this. You look back and say, oh, that's why I went through that season in life, because it made me stronger today in my faith. Everything happens for a reason, and everything happens and will happen in your life. But how you respond is the key. So continue to live your life to the fullest. Continue to focus your eyes on Jesus and never look back. Take care. God bless.